So in the last class, we had concluded the topic of Aikyam and came to discussing who is a Jivan Mukta, who is a person who's liberated while alive. And the author told us that a Jivan Mukta is one who has undoubted knowledge of this Aikyam, of this oneness. He has direct self-knowledge, what we call Aparoksha Jnanam. And we talked about how this Aparoksha Jnanam is different from Paroksha Jnanam, which is indirect knowledge of something you read in a book or hear about something. We talked about how if your friend had told you about this kangaroo they saw. And this is also different from Pratyaksha Jnanam, which is direct experience. If you go see this kangaroo yourself, this Aparoksha Jnanam is different from both these, because while the other two are knowledge about an object, this is knowledge about yourself, the subject. So when you first gain this knowledge through Shravanam, initially it will be Paroksha Jnanam. But at some point, this knowledge will become doubtless, and finally it will become your own direct knowledge. Direct knowledge that Aham Satchitananda Swarupa. So let's look at the rest of the Jivan Mukti verse we started in the last class. I won't read it again. I won't ask you to chant it again. So it said, Jivan Mukta Kaha, and the answer was, Yata Dehoham Purushoham Brahmanoham Shudroham Asmiti Drid Nishchaya Tata Naham Brahmano na Shudro na Purusha Kintu Asangah Satchidananda Swarupa Prakasha Rupa Sarvaya Antaryami Chidakasha Rupa Asmiti Drid Nishchaya Rupa Aparoksha Jnanavan Jivan Mukta. This is what the author told us, and we looked at quite a bit of what it means. So it simply said, just as one has firm belief, speaking of the ignorant person, that I am the body, I am a man, I am a Brahmin, I am a Shudra, so also this Jivan Mukta has undoubted knowledge that I am not a Brahmin, I am not a Shudra, I am not a man, but I am the unattached of the nature of Satchidananda. I'm effulgent. I'm the indweller of all. I'm the formless awareness. Thus, one having this firmly ascertained Aparoksha Jnanam, immediate knowledge, is Jivan Mukta. So this Jivan Mukta has direct knowledge that I'm not this body. Knowledge which is held with a firm conviction that I am the nature of limitless existence, limitless consciousness and bliss. I am Sat, absolute existence. I existed before, during, and after the body. Imagine the power of such a knowledge. There would be no more fear of death. So many decisions we take in life are because of wanting to simply survive. What we do for a living, how we spend our time on this earth is all determined by this wanting to survive. So imagine this fear going away. It also means no more fear of death of loved ones. Fear of loss is a deep trauma we all carry, a deep vasana we all carry from several lifetimes. Again and again we lost those dear to us and suffered due to it, not knowing that I cannot lose anyone. Such a loss is not possible. It's simply the body which has dropped and the consciousness survives. And I am the consciousness which pervades the body, mind complex. And I survive, but I am not connected to this body, mind complex. Hence, you will know that the death of the body does not affect the Atma. The Atma continues to exist. This unconnected nature is what the author is calling Asanga Swarupa. The author says that Atma I am Sarva Antaryami. So this is that same, I am the same consciousness principle which pervades all living beings. That's what is meant by Sarva Antaryami. like the thread of a mala. The thread is inside every bead, but it is not visible. It holds all the beads together. It pervades all, but it is unattached. This example, however, like all other examples, has a limitation. Can someone tell me how this bead example has a limitation? We're saying we are equating the unattached nature of the Atma to the thread which holds all these beads together. But this has a limitation. Anyone? Okay. So in this example, the thread, yeah, go ahead, Rolly.
Oh, I just said that it has a form. That is the first limitation.
That is true. Not exactly what we were getting at. Of course, it has a form, and the other is the thread is separate from the beads, right? But when we talked about Atma, it's everything that we see, everything else in the manifestation of this universe is made from the same material. The Brahman or Atma was also the Upadana Karanam of everything we see. It is also the material cause of everything we see. So it's the spider example helps us clarify that. So the thread of the spider is made of nothing other than the spider itself. Right? So again, the spider example will have other limitations, but we should always be aware of the limitations when we take these examples. Right? So similarly, I, the Atma, am not confined to this body alone. It would be as silly as the water assuming it is confined to the wave alone. So we can use some more analogies to understand this concept. And the author uses Akasha Swarupa and Prakasha Swarupa, space and light, to give us some more analogies. So just like Akasha and Prakasha, space and light, Atma is formless, right? It's Nirakara. It's divisionless. It cannot be cut with a knife or otherwise divided. It is blemishless. It cannot be polluted or contaminated. The sunlight can shine light on the dirtiest sewage water, but nothing happens to the sunshine. It's nirmalaha, blemishless. The Atma, like Akasha or Prakasha, does not have any boundaries. It is only the objects which have boundaries. We can say the space inside this bottle and the space outside the bottle. What is the difference between the two spaces? The difference is only the boundary of the body. If the bottle were to break, the space inside the bottle would simply merge with the space outside the bottle. It was an artificial boundary created by the object. So Atma is associated with every object, but not connected to any. The light right now is falling on my body, but it is not connected to my body. If I go away, the light will not disappear, right? So that is nisanga. A jnani knows this, knows that this Atma I am. He never says, I am the body. He knows he's temporarily using the body. So similarly, all these associations like being a Brahmin, Kshatriya, or being a man or a woman, all these identities are dropped. So the author says the jnani has drid nishchaya, means a firm conviction. This knowledge is never forgotten. Just like an actor playing a role, a good actor might really get into the role. He might be playing a beggar or a king, and a dedicated actor will really get into the role, imagine the background of this character he's playing, try to really bring the emotions onto the screen. So, but the actor will never really forget who he really is. At the back of his mind, he will know who he really is. So all the various worries that ignorant people, ajnanis, have about getting old, death, so on, the jnani is unaffected because he knows the body is only an incidental medium. Its nature, the nature of this body is to be born, to grow, to undergo changes, decay and die, the Shadvikara that we talked about. So there is no obsession with this body or body of near and dear ones also. Of course, it's looked upon as a temple in which the Atma resides and hence healthy care is taken. Similarly, a jnani would not have any worries about money, jobs, kids' well-being. The jnani will, of course, perform all duties which came with the karma of the body, but he understands that this is a transactional, temporary reality. The mortal I becomes a temporary role that I play in this dream called life. Just like an actor plays different roles, identifying with each role. He cries when he has to cry, laughs when he has to laugh, and is angry when he has to. But he is, in the end, not really affected by any of it. Of course, the fluctuations are not the same degree for a jnani as of an ajnani, because there is no real suffering. Out of empathy, you may see tears in the eyes of a jnani, but he is really watching everything as a witness. Despite all the roles he plays, in the back of the mind remains that knowledge that I am not this role temporarily being played out. That absolute consciousness I am, and the actor is not contaminated by any of these roles. Nothing affects my completeness. Nothing affects the sense of purvartam, this completeness of a Jivan Mukta. The Jivan Mukta does not depend on the world and knows the world does not depend on him. Fulfillment from all kinds of limitations is Jivan Mukti. So we define moksha as 5 benefits in the introductory class, having these 5 benefits in full measure. I hope you remember what they are. We said there will be jnana nivritti. Who am I? Who is God? Why am I born? Why do I suffer? Many of these mysteries are already answered in this one text itself. Hopefully, the fact that you're here after 5 months is indication that you're gaining some intellectual satisfaction in the very least. There is, and we said the second benefit was Vidyananda Prapti. The very knowledge that I am eternal serves to remove the sense of insecurity and fear. As this knowledge gets assimilated more and more, all emotional problems go away. And I enjoy an inner peace called Vidyananda. The third benefit was Karpanna Nivritti. Once I discover Ananda from this knowledge, I can stop depending on the external sources, these external fleeting objects for happiness. These external pleasures, when they come, become a bonus, but I'm not desperately dependent on them anymore. I always have a standby, my UPS, my uninterrupted pleasure supply. And then we talked of Agata Nivritti, shock absorber. The self-knowledge gives an emotional shock absorber, a coating, like a raincoat. Even the worst tragedy may create a disturbance, but I will recover and it won't create any kind of long-term trauma. The what and the so what comes closer together. When the event happens, when wisdom directly takes over the tragedy effortlessly. When the true self is invoked, the tragedy of life becomes automatically insignificant. And finally, we said there would be dakshata prapti, an increase in efficiency in the day-to-day life, because I don't have a desperate dependence and I'm free from shocks of life. My mind is relaxed and calm, and this calmness increases my efficiency. The fire is reduced, so one can focus on the task at hand. And we are being told that all these benefits can be enjoyed while alive. That's Jivan Mukti. So any questions so far?
Spandana ji, namaste. I have a question.
Yes, please go ahead.
Since I understand that it is maybe not possible or very difficult to understand what a Jivan Mukta is unless you really experience it. But since we are on the topic, I want to ask that you mentioned that a Jivan Mukta really like he's like an actor. He cries when he has to cry, and he laughs when he has to laugh, and then so like. Is it like there is still some degree by he will be affected to some degree and then he will recover, or because then I understand he will laugh and cry, but if he's not affected at all, then like what is the point of laughing and crying? Like,
So even an actor, the example that I gave, even an actor, they allow themselves to feel some amount of sadness, right?
so
To be
is
able
it
to really
it's
cry.
really like acting? It's really like acting.
It's always knowing that I am not this role that I am playing. It's always being aware of my real nature, knowing that this role I'm playing right now is a temporary role. And so that firm conviction that in the end that I will survive, and knowing that all this is a play, even like if you were to wake up in your dream,
So
would you?
is it just a conviction, or a Jivan Mukta has experienced the oneness? I think that is my question.
Yes, the Jivan Mukta has direct knowledge of the oneness.
Okay, but still he is affected to a very little extent, so that he can feel all the emotions.
Yes, it will, because the Jivan Mukta always has the knowledge of his true self ever present in the back of the mind or front of the mind. He will not be affected by this temporary role he plays. So just like an actor, if you're playing, an actor is playing a historical drama, and he's playing, like say a father who's lost a son or something, he will allow himself to feel some of that sadness. He will have empathy for that character he's playing, and he will have that sadness. But when the scene is over, he's okay. He can move on because he knows it was not really real.
Okay, very difficult to understand. I think.
So, I mean, in the end, you don't really have to wait till Jivan Mukti to experience all these benefits. Right? We keep talking about the hungry man whose hunger gets satiated as he starts eating. So as you um, go on this Vedanta journey, speak to people who've been on this journey for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, reach out to people in the Sangha and see how their FIR is changing. You will see that they're all starting to enjoy these benefits already.
No, that is why actually I asked this question, is because I also have been on this path for some years, and I can see the changes in me, but still it is like things affect, and then somewhere you remember like a little quickly that okay, I just got carried away and this is not who I am. But still, I mean, it affects. So maybe when you are a Jivan Mukta, you totally get above all that. I mean, that is what I was really curious about. It is that now this person is at a different level. He has he has had that experience of reality. So then, why is he crying or laughing? But so then I mean, sorry, but it sounded a little shallow. That is he just acting like for the sake of crying and
No,
laughing?
not so he can still feel genuine empathy
Hmm.
for the suffering, and hence he might be moved to tears, but he will not. It will not last. It will be very
Okay.
transient.
Okay. Okay.
You
So
know,
empathy is what
it's
I
also
will.
yeah, it's also important to know that because people have some very mystical, notion of what a Jivan Mukta is. They won't be sitting absolutely still and numb to the world in samadhi state or something like that. They will still go about transacting in the world,
Hmm.
you know,
Okay. I think.
and they might momentarily lose their temper. They might momentarily feel the sadness. So that's what I meant. Like, when something big happens, you'll be like, what? And then, like, so what? That gap between the what to so what is very short, almost negligible. Because the body, even after this complete realization, the body will have its prarabdha to play out. We'll come to what is prarabdha. And there will be some, even after this complete realization, there can be a few vasanas left, few samskaras of the body left, these tendencies, right? So even if it's just that they become very non-binding. I gave this very funny example that if you put a strawberry ice cream and a chocolate ice cream in front of a jnani, he will pick one, because he likes one more than the other. So he still has likes and dislikes. It's just that they're no longer binding. If the chocolate ice cream he likes is not there, he's not going to be upset about it. The binding nature of all likes and dislikes goes away. Which is why also different Gyanis had completely different lives, right? People who believe to be Gyanis, Ramana Maharishi he came and settled in Arunachala for the love of this mountain in which he saw Shiva, and he didn't open his mouth for years. Even then, after that, when he opened, he spoke very less. You had Swami Chinmananda, who created a big mission, was driven to spread this knowledge everywhere. Swami Dayananda wanted a quieter life and set up an ashram in Rishikesh and taught from there. Swami Paramarthananda lives in Chennai city, driving around town and teaching to who wants to listen. So the vasanas will still determine what happens in the rest of the life of the Jivan Mukta. So now the next question may be, what will happen at the time of death? We talked about all the benefits which will happen while living, right? So in the page 20 middle, I'll chant and you can repeat. Brahmevasmiti.
Brahmevasmasti.
Aparoksha jnanena.
Aparoksha jnanena.
Nikhila karma bandhaha.
Nikhila karma bandha.
Vinirmuktah tasyat.
Vinirmuktah syat.
So, by the immediate knowledge, aparoksha jnanam, that I am Brahman, one becomes free of bondage of all of karmas. So a new word is being introduced, karma, which we will delve into right now. So aparoksha jnanena, by the sheer power of this direct self-knowledge of aham brahmasmi, that I am the limitless consciousness, that I'm not this body which is subject to decay, and not this mind with its emotional problems or forgetfulness. So with this direct knowledge, karma bandha vimukta syat. At the time of death, this jivan mukta becomes free from all karma. It's called bandha, shackles. So karma, which is being introduced now, is also known as punyam and papam. Punyam being good karma and papam being bad karma. One becomes free from both of these. If you remember earlier in the text, hopefully, you will recall that karma is responsible for rebirth. So at the time of death, if a jnani is free from all karmas, what is the implication? That there will be no more punarjanma, there will be no more rebirth. The jnani, this jiva, will no longer assume a new body. The freedom from a new body is called videha mukti. Deha meaning body. So when the jnani and jivan mukta dies, we call it videha mukti. So this is a freedom from individuality and a merger into the totality. So just as when river Ganga merges into the ocean, it is no longer known as Ganga. It has lost its individuality, but it continues to exist as part of the whole ocean. So you looked at the word karma in also a different context. So you have to remember that Sanskrit is a very contextual language. So the other meaning of karma was action. We used it in the terms of karmindriyas, the organs of actions, if you remember. So this is now a different meaning of karma. Sorry, give me 1 second. Apologies, someone was calling repeatedly. Yes, so now we are looking at the other meaning of karma, which is talking about this law of karma, right? This punyam and papam. Our lives are governed by a set of laws, the physical laws and also the very subtle laws of karma. Like understanding the law of physics is very useful to live in harmony with this world. Understanding the law of karma is equally helpful to live this life in order to transcend it. So the law of karma says that every action produces the result, right? So every action has two components, a seen component and an unseen component. So the seen component drishta and the unseen component adrishta. Can someone tell me what the unseen component of an action we do is? It would be the intention or the motive behind the action. So say you're walking down the street and you see a person next to you who's crossing, looking in the other direction, crossing the street, looking in the other direction, and there is a bus coming. And you think this bus is going to hurt this person, is going to hit this person. So you push this person, right? And the person falls down and say fractures their leg or something. So the seen part of the action is you push this person, they fell down and they fractured their leg, right? The unseen part of the action was you had a good intention to save this person from an accident, right? Of course, the result didn't turn out like you hoped, but at least partially you had a good intention because of which you acted. So My initial action has two parts. The drishta part was the push. The adrishta part was my intention to save this person. And then again, there were two results which came. There was the drishta phalam, the seen result, which is the person fell down and fractured their leg. And there is also the adrishta phalam, phalam meaning fruit, result, being there would be some punyam or papam now credited to your account. Right? So, because the drishta phalam, the seen result, comes from the seen action. So, the pushing resulted in the fall and the fracture. And the adrishta phalam, the unseen punyam or papam, comes from the adrishta part of your action, which was the intention. Because the intention was very pure, was very good to try to help this person, I will actually incur only punyam, good karma, because of this action. Right? So the adrishta part of the action, the intention will determine the adrishta portion of the result, which is the punyam or papam, which is generated. Any questions in that? So this is very important to understand. So the same visible action can result in punyam or papam based on the invisible motive. If I had actually pushed this person because I just don't like them and I want to hurt them, then the same action would have resulted in papam for me. So a knife wielded by a robber in a robbery will give papam, and the same knife in the hands of a surgeon will give punyam, right? So this punyam or papam goes into the account book of the jiva as a credit. And at some point, it will have to be debited. So punyam will result in pleasurable experiences at some point. Papam will result in painful experiences at some point. But because it's not always one credit to one debit, sometimes the experience which comes your way will be mixed. So oftentimes the experiences we have will have a mix of pain and pleasure. So every punyam and papam accumulated is a seed for future pleasure and pain. And when will that karma be accumulated? When will this fructify? That bit is a surprise. Shastra says that it is not uniform. Just like different seeds will take different amount of time to give fruit. A tomato plant will bear fruit in 4 months. A mango tree will take at least 5 years. There is this plant called Kokodamer, which is native to a small island in Seychelles, and it takes 20 to 40 years to give fruit. So just like we see this in nature, when something will fructify varies, same goes with your karma, this punyam and papam that you accumulate. Some might fructify this very instant. You slap someone and they slap you right back. That's karma coming back to you right now. Or they might hold a grudge for 20 years and you show up for a job interview one day and the person you slapped in school is the person interviewing you today, right? So it's coming back to you after 20 years. Or it might not come back in this lifetime at all. It might take the next lifetime or several lifetimes before this karma comes back to you. So this actually solves one of the big questions in life, if you understand this really well. We all have this intrinsic belief that we must be good. Even a thief knows stealing is bad. That is why he hides and does it. Right? So we all know we must do good and we will reap what we sow. There is this intrinsic belief we all have, which the law of karma confirms. But then sometimes we see that very bad things seem to be happening to beautiful, good people. And there are some bad people who seem to be getting away with everything. And we wonder why is this happening? But the law of karma combined with rebirth answers this question. There is some punyam and papam which will not fructify in this janma. It will take a few janmas to fructify. And Shastra also tells us that only humans can create new karma, because only in human birth we have a doership and have the discrimination to understand what is good and bad. So the animals don't actually premeditate any evil deeds, right? So animals, Shastra says, are acting purely out of their vasanas. And all animal birds, all other birds, plant birds, everything is just to exhaust a certain amount of karma. So all other birds except human birds are bhokta birds, only for the enjoyment and the fulfillment of some of this karma. It's only in human birth where there is free will and new karma can be created. And hence it is only in human birth where there is a chance of liberation. Okay. So next, types of karma are being discussed. We will read. Any questions about this debit credit of karma so far?
Spandana ji,
Yes,
I have.
I have a question.
Yes. Deepa ji, please go ahead.
Yeah, tell me, what about those animals? They sit inside the temple and they listen. What about that? Aren't they creating a new karma?
No, so Shastra tells us that none of these animals, they're all acting purely out of past life vasanas.
But going to
So-
the temple and listening and behaving sometimes like a human being, cuddling God, giving them something, isn't
Yeah.
it like? I mean,
They
that may
don't
be the
create any.
part of.
They don't create any new karma.
Okay.
They are born with a. That's what Shastra tells us. They're born with a certain amount of karma to exhaust in this lifetime, which we will look at right now when we look at the types of karma. But they don't create any new karma.
So it means when the human only have a free will.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes. Rolly, you had a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask that one is I am a little confused. You said that one karma, like for every action, there are two actions. Like one is the intention and one is the action, which we can see. So for both, there will be fruits. So basically, every action is creating multiple karma or one.
So every action has two parts, I said, a seen part and an unseen part. And hence there will be, the result will also be two part, a seen part and an unseen part. The seen part of the action will create the seen result. The unseen part of the action, the intention, will create the unseen part, which is the punyam or papam.
Oh, okay. So two. Okay. That is
Two
okay.
parts to the action, two parts to the result.
And one more question. You said that, like, for a thief, for example, you gave that the thief knows that he's doing wrong. That is why he does it in like hiding. But I think why the thief does it in hiding is because he knows that it is wrong by law, not that he thinks that it is wrong. So somewhere that ignorance is there, and I mean, people can think differently. Like I can think of something being right, and you can think of the same thing as being wrong. So that is there.
So
So
let's come back to that. Let's come back to this discussion because I want to continue with this part. So let's take it up again after 9 o'clock.
okay.
Yeah. Right. So now types of karma being discussed on page 20. I will chant. Please repeat. Karmani kati vidani.
Karmani
kati vidhani
Santi iti chet.
Santi iti
Santi
chet.
iti chet.
Agami sanchita prarabdha.
Agami
Agami
sanchitta
sanchita
prarabdha.
prarabdha
Abedani trividani santi.
Abhedena trividani santi.
You? So the author says, if does asked, iti chet, how many types of karma are there? Here, karma, of course, referring to the punyam papam. There are three types of karma. Agami, sanchita, prarabdha. So there are sanchita is this karma which is earned and accumulated across several births. This is your big basket of karma that the jiva has. Sanchita meaning accumulated. Okay, so your accumulated big basket of karma is sanchita. So now out of this big basket of accumulated karma, one little portion which will have some punyam, some papam will be taken out and allocated for this birth. That is prarabdha. The karma which is allocated to be exhausted in this birth is prarabdha. So this will determine what kind of birth we will get. Will we get a human birth or a plant birth or an animal birth? Shastra tells us a fair bit of punyam is required for a human birth. No matter how unfortunate the circumstances of that birth might be, it still requires a lot of good karma, punyam, for a human birth. It will determine the circumstances of your birth. What kind of family will you be born in a well-off family, in an educated family, in a spiritual family? Will you have a male or female body, a healthy body or not? What kind of talents you will have? All this will be determined by the prarabdha karma. So, which is why this is how Jyotish works, astrology, right? So, because when they look at the time of your birth and see the charts, what they're actually reading is the prarabdha karma in your chart. Very important to remember that prarabdha karma and whatever a Jyotish might read, which I would say keep away from it unless it's someone you can really look up to spiritually. Better to keep away from that. But what they're reading is what are the kind of situations which will come to you at different points in life. They don't determine the outcome of these situations, So someone might win a lot of money in the lottery, for example, and it could be great karma for someone. It frees them up to really pursue their passions, to really dedicate their life to their calling, and so on. Or it might make them lose all sense of purpose because their sense of purpose so far came from, let's say, the job they did. So it makes them lose sense of purpose, makes them lazy, and have no motivation for anything. So the same situation can. So this in the chart might show there's some money coming your way, right? But it won't show what will then be the outcome? So the outcome is again partially determined by your vasanas, your habitual thinking patterns, which is again something you inherit from your prarabdha, right? Your prarabdha will also tell you if what kind of vasanas you have, what kind of personality traits you have. So if one is looking at their chart, the best way to do that is use that to understand your vasana. Because the situations which are coming your way, you can't do anything about them anyway. But you can use that to know yourself better, know this transient personality better, so that you can better act in a way which would be conducive for the goals that you want to pursue. Right? So it might tell you something very simple, like you have a tendency for anger. So, but you don't make it a self-fulfilling prophecy, So if you feel the anger rising, you don't say, okay, I have a tendency for anger, so that's how I am. Instead, you can, if a situation triggers and you feel that anger bubbling, you can say, oh, I know I have a tendency for anger, and that's something I have to work on. So let me hold back my reaction till the time I'm calmer and then act. That's the free will you can exercise. Right? So prarabdha karma is that a karma given to you for this lifetime. It affects you as a bhokta, in terms of the experiences which come your way. It also affects you as a karta, the doer, in terms of the vasanas which it gives you. So now that's two types of karma, sanchita, prarabdha, and agami. So the current actions which I'm doing in this lifetime will also result in a karma, which is why, because there is free will and doership in a human birth, every action I do will have this adrishta portion of the intention, and that will result in karma. And that karma is called agami. And like we said, some of these actions, the results might fructify in this janma, and sometimes the conditions are not conducive. So all this unfructified agami will get added to your big basket of sanchita. And at some point, it will come back to you in terms of your prarabdha. So like this, repeated cycles of births and deaths will occur. So then the text is now going to talk about the three types of karma in the context of a jnani. Before we enter into that, I wanted to explain what exactly these three types of karma are, because all these three types of karmas work a bit differently for a jnani and an ajnani. Okay, so the ordinary cycle of an ajnani is he's caught in this vicious cycle of birth and death, but that is not the same for a jnani. So we will chant Agami karma kim.
Agami karma kim.
Jnanotpatyantaram.
Jnanotpatyantaram.
Jnani deha kritam.
Jnani dehitinam.
Punya papa rupa karma.
Punya papa rupan karma.
Yadasti tat.
Yadasti tat.
Agami ityabhidhiyate.
Agami ityabhidhyate.
Okay, so the definition of agami is given here. depends on if the person is a jnani or an ajnani, like I said. For an ajnani, the agami, which is punyam and papam, is acquired from the time of birth, and not, or the time basically the person becomes capable of thinking independently. So a baby who does an action without any motive or intent will not accrue any punyam or papam. Right? So that's the cutoff time. So the cutoff time is the time of birth or right after, when the person becomes capable of acting with a motive or intent. And in the case of a jnani, the cutoff time is jnanam. So up till the time of jnanam, hence jnani is called a dvijaha, twice born. Whatever action is done and agami accumulated till point of jnanam gets added to sanchita, and then the agami counter starts again. So when we talk about agami of a jnani, we mean after jnanam. Right? So, however, jnano utpatti antaram, after gaining jnanam, jnani deha kritam. So, actions done by the body of a jnani, carefully note the author says the body of a jnani, because the jnani does not have any deha abhimana, does not think of his body as himself. Yadasthiti, whatever karma is there, tat agami tabyedu. This is called agami karma. And what exactly happens to a jnani's agami karma is explained later. So it's very simple. It's a very simple definition of what is an agami karma. It's basically, it's the karma accumulated from the actions we're doing right now in this lifetime. And the definition was slightly different for a jnani and an ajnani. So for an ajnani, the counter starts from, when we talk about agami of an ajnani, the counter starts from the time they become capable of making decisions after birth. And when we talk about agami of a jnani, we just mean after jnani. Right? Then we will look at sanchita. Sanchitam karma kim.
Kim.
Anantakoti janmanam.
Anantakoti janmanam.
Bijabhutam.
Bijabhutam.
Satyat karma jatam.
Satyat karma jatam.
Purvarjitam.
Purvajitam.
Tishtati tat sanchitam neyam.
Tisthati tat sanchitam niyam.
So the question is, what is sanchita karma of a jnani? We have to add, as the topic is of jnani right now. Yat karma jatam purvajitam tishtati. Whatever punyam papam is accumulated in the past janmas, both remote past and recent. So whatever karma was accumulated in past janmas, and also karma accumulated till time of jnanam in this janma, right? Bija Bhutam Sat, which is the seed for Ananta Koti Janma, which is the seed for innumerable Janmas, countless crores of future Janmas in normal circumstances. That is in the case of Ajnanam continuing, Purvajitam, accumulated in the past, Tishtati Tat Sanchitam. This is called Sanchita. So in short, the results of actions performed in all the previous births, which are in the seed form to give rise to endless crores of births in future, is called sanchita, which is accumulated karma. Okay, and then what is prarabdha? So I'm going fast because we already discussed what these are. Prarabdham karma kimiti chet.
Prarabdham karma kimiti chet.
Idam shariramutpada, sorry, idam shariramutpadya
Idam shariramautpadya
iha loke evam
ihaloke evam
sukha dukkadi pradam
sukha dukkhadi pradam
yat karma tat prarabdham
yat karma tat prarabdham
bhogena nashtam bhavati
bhogena nashtam bhavati
prarabdha karmanam
prarabdha karmanam
bhogadeva ikshayati.
bhogadeva kshayati.
So it says, if questioned, what is prarabdha karma? So it's having given birth to this body, the actions which give results in this very world in the form of happiness, of misery, and which can be destroyed only by enjoying or suffering them, is called prarabdha karma. So the prarabdha definition is the same for a jnani and an ajnani. So part of the sanchita, which has fructified and given rise to this body and the circumstances of this birth, and also the situations which will come to you in this lifetime, idam shariram padya, that which produces this body, that's prarabdha. So in one sentence, breaking the illusion many people have that God is responsible for this birth and what happens to you. Here it tells us it is the law of karma alone which determines your date of birth, type of birth, circumstances, and so on. Of course, Ishvara is the maintainer of law of karma. However, the specific circumstances of our birth are determined by our past actions alone. So, only prarabdha of the three types of karma is the same for a jnani and an ajnani. So having explained the three types of karmas, the author goes into what happens into the three types of karmas for a jnani. First, he takes up prarabdha, which we just chanted, and says, Bhogena nasyam bhavati. It is exhausted only by experiencing, or bhogena. The karma phalam, or fruits, whether bitter or sweet, whether painful or pleasurable, have to be experienced. The jnani's body is also under the influence of prarabdha. It's already in motion since the time the body came to be. You know, so just like a fan will keep rotating even after you switch it off, this motion will continue. The prarabdha will determine long life or short life. Adi Shankaracharya only lived till the age of 32. It will determine if it will be a healthy body or a disease-ridden body. Ramana Maharishi had cancer, and so did Sri Ramakrishna. What is the difference though? While there might be pain, physical pain for the body, there will be no suffering. I will read an excerpt from a book of Sri Ramakrishna. It says, towards the end of his life, when one day Sri Ramakrishna was lying in bed, suffering from throat cancer, his disciple Hari, later Swami Turiyananda, approached him and asked, Sir, how are you? Sri Ramakrishna replied, Oh, I am in great pain. I cannot eat anything and there is unbearable burning in my throat. But Hari was not fooled. The more Sri Ramakrishna complained, the clearer it became to Hari that his teacher was testing him. Finally, no longer able to control himself, he burst out. Sir, whatever you may say, I see you as an infinite ocean of bliss. At this, Sri Ramakrishna said to himself with a smile, this rascal has found me out. Sri Ramakrishna taught by his life. Let the body be preoccupied with illness, but O mind, dwell forever in God's bliss. When someone asked Sri Ramakrishna to pray to the Divine Mother to be cured of cancer, he said that he could never utter such a prayer. The mind that had been given to God could not be made to dwell on the body. So this is, of course, different for a jnani when an unfavorable experience comes. While the prarabdha must continue and it will bring the experience that it has to bring, the jnani has no identification with the body or the mind. He looks at the body as an external object which has to undergo its karma. So there may be physical pain, but there will be no suffering. So then the author goes on to explain what happens to the different kinds of karma, which we will take up in the next class. Any questions?
Spandanaji, I just wanted to clarify if I understood this right, because I think I may not have. So the agami karma for a jnani, it basically stops when he becomes a jnani. Right? Like he stops accruing karma when he becomes a jnani. Is that it?
Yeah, in a way, that's going to come later. But basically, right now, we were just defining what do we call a gami karma of a jnani. And the definition was the gami karma of a jnani, the counter starts from the time of jnani. But yes, he stops accruing karma, which is coming later.
And the sanchit karma, I didn't understand this one. Prarabdha, I understand it's the same for both, but sanchit, I don't understand.
So sanchita is basically all your accumulated karma.
No, for jnani, what is the difference?
Yeah, so for a jnani, the difference is basically because he stops accumulating agami karma, because your agami karma also gets added to your sanchita. So the difference is no new karma gets added to sanchita for a jnani. Any other questions?
And Spandanaji, I just want to mention, according to my knowledge till now I have received from you, that prarabdha is unknown to be how it is given and how it is determined and how it is been given to us by.
Right. Yeah, it is unknown. Unknown in the sense that you don't know, you can't determine why you have a certain good karma or bad karma in this lifetime, because of which actions you have that. All that is known is that if some unfavorable circumstances are coming your way, it's because of some bad karma you yourself accumulated in the past. And if favorable circumstances are coming your way, it's because of something good you did in the past. But it's immaterial and a pointless waste of time to figure out what exactly those actions were. Right? So people do past life regression and things like that. But we say in Shastra that it's immaterial. All you need to know is you're reaping what you sowed. So just accept that if something is coming your way, it's because of your own past actions. But also know that everything that is coming your way is because there is something to be learned from that experience. Right? So only if you learn from that experience will that experience stop repeating. we find that whenever we refuse to learn from that experience, that same situation will come to us again and again in countless forms till we learn the lesson which has to be learned from it. Yes. Because there is only one goal that we are moving towards. So everything is rigged towards that goal. So we have to learn from the circumstances which come our way.
I mean to say, prarabdha karma are those which have been given to us in this birth out of sanchit karma.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you can't know which part, how much punyam papam you got, out of your whole basket for this birth. All you know is you got a human birth, which means a lot of the punyam has been used up. So don't waste this birth because having this, actually, being in Tiruvannamalai, I'm reminded again, this is a very special place with this very special Shiva energy, and it brings a lot of seekers from all over the world, especially seekers who are into non-duality. It brings them here, and you will see people who've been here coming for decades, people in their late 80s, 90s even. And somehow, it requires a tremendous amount of punyam to find the right teacher and the teachings. And I was just again filled with so much gratitude for being brought to this lineage and the teachers I've received, because there is so much of this, neo-Vedanta, there's so many of these different ritualistic sort of teachings, so many things, which have no real inkling of the truth available out there. Even having that discernment to figure out when I have come to the right teaching, all that requires so much punyam. So if you found yourself coming to Advaita Vedanta in this lifetime with a real lineage, and you can identify there is truth to what is being spoken there, this required a lot of punyam. So it's not to be wasted. Any other questions?
Yes, Nandanaji, can we come back to the question that I was asking?
Yes. So, I disagree with what you said there, that Robert doesn't really know, he's doing bad. Yes, people choose to act dharmically, but they still know it's adharma. Even when Duryodhana was asked, he said somewhere in Mahabharata, like, I know what is dharma and I know what is adharma, but I cannot stop myself from acting dharmically. So, you will have to, if you want, you can try to get into the mindset of one of these people and try to question their motives, but I suspect all of them know what is dharma.
No, that is why I was taking the example of, say, I think of an action as right, and you may think of that action differently. Like, for example, any act, so for example, somebody is working towards a cause, say animal welfare. So some people will think, okay, this is right, they work towards it. Some people think that, no, this is wrong and you are inconveniencing, and these, say for example, street dogs, they are biting people. So people can have different perspectives.
For sure there is shades of it, right? Like there is shades of, everyone has their own belief system, and some people, we have different opinions of what is right and wrong. But when it comes to the really core principles, I don't think anyone can really say killing is okay, or I mean, some people think, yes, killing of animals is okay, but not of humans is okay. There's different shades of it.
Yeah, but we are not just talking about extreme actions. Like when we are talking about the law of karma, every action, even the subtle actions and intentions, are counted.
Yes.
So,
So I agree. I will give you that there is shades of it. So even in people's understanding of what is dharma and adharma, there is different shades of it, right? Which is why we teach kids what is the right action, what is the wrong action. But generally, by the time we reach this stage, we don't have a confusion about dharma, adharma itself. But yes, it's definitely there. There can be a confusion about what is dharma and what is adharma. But we all, I was speaking as to that feeling we all, that intrinsic feeling we all have that I must act dharmically. I must do the right action. So there might be a confusion about what is the right action. But we all have this intrinsic feeling that I must do the right action, that I must not act in a way which I don't want being done to me.
actually, if I talk from my personal experience, like maybe now I am conscious towards my actions, but there was a period in my life where they were, I mean, if anybody talked about conscious or unconscious actions, I wouldn't really fully understand.
Yeah, so
So,
it's different stages of evolution.
right.
So
So,
being conscious aware of your actions is one stage of evolution. And yes, your refinement of what is dharmic action and dharmic action undergoes an evolution. So for sure, that is there. I agree with you.
So that is why I had another question. You said that so people say that something like God is responsible for what is happening to us, but that's not true. We are responsible. But everything comes from God. And I'm just trying to understand because this really confuses me what is happening in terms of karma is God is the source, or Brahman is the source of everything, like you said. So he's also the source of ignorance. If he is the source of knowledge, he's also the source of ignorance because we are not the source of anything. So the ignorance also that we have has a source. It's not that we are,
So
taking
you're
it from.
confusing two concepts. Brahman and God, I guess you mean Ishvara, are two different concepts.
Okay, that is fine. So
Yeah.
let's talk about.
So when we say Brahman is akarta, is not a doer.
Okay,
What is Ishvara? Ishvara is Brahman plus Maya,
okay.
right? And yes, you can say Ishvara is the law of maintainer of this law. Is the maintainer of this law of karma. But you can't say he's the source of any of this. So just like the sun is shining on everything. Because of its presence, everything gets illumined,
No, which
right?
is fine. I mean, I'm saying that, so let's start with the Maya. Maya also is a part of Brahman. It's not different. It is a dependent reality. And
Yes.
Maya is what is with what causes ignorance, right? But somewhere the source is Brahman itself, because Maya is a dependent reality. So the ignorance is also coming from the Brahman. So then how is he not involved in this whole cycle of karma? I mean,
So, in the sense, yes, you'll have to contemplate on it, right? So, I'm going to give you an answer, but I'll ask you to then contemplate on it
I
because
have
you want to.
contemplated a lot. I cannot find the answer.
You will have to contemplate. That's the thing. So, because it's the same, you have to understand it in the sense of this sun example I gave. The sun so if the sun is shining and someone used that sunlight to do some kind of misdeed, you say the sun made me do it because of the sun I won't have any light to have been able to do that. You can't say. And say similarly, when you go to sleep every night, right, and you create all these different characters who are undergoing suffering and things like that. Where did that whole dream world come from? It came from your own mind, right? But will you wake up and say, it was your fault that all these characters had suffering during this dream? Because this
But
dream
the
world
point is
was
that
created
nothing
from
is
your
of
mind.
my own. The point is that nothing is of my own. That is what we are learning here, right? Nothing is of my own. So why am I becoming the
contemplate.
maker of my karma?
Yeah, really. So contemplate on it and let's talk again.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can end. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you, Spandana ji.